Hey everyone, it's Paige, and today I'm here with a review of To Kill a Kingdom by Alexandra Christo. To Kill a Kingdom comes out March 6th. When Fierce Reads first sent me the ARC package, this was one of the books that I was most excited for, and I was kind of let down. My first main beef with this was that there was two different points of view, and they were both told in first person, but between each chapter you weren't told when the POV was switching, so there was a couple paragraphs sometimes where I was like, wait, who is talking right now? And there was a couple times where I just kind of had to figure it out, and then I was like, oh, okay, and then, you know, kind of like get used to their voice, and then immediately, like, you would kind of switch over to a different voice, and then there were 2 or 3 chapters in the same person, and then switch again, and it was kind of like, what is going on? So I feel like maybe it was more just a design thing of them not putting at the top of each chapter the different POV of who was speaking, but it was really confusing sometimes, especially in the very beginning, because I had no idea who these characters were. I really wanted to like this book because I think the story is really interesting. What happens is that there is a siren named Lyra, and she's the princess of the sea, so her mom is the sea queen. And Lyra, every year on her birthday, she kills a prince and takes his heart, and then she keeps it for herself, so this is kind of like a ritual for her, and it's something that her mom requests that she does every year. And then something happens where Lyra is punished by her mom, so she's turned into a human, and one of the princes that she is meant to kill finds her drowning, and he saves her. And his name is Prince Elian. E-L-I-A-N. Elian. I'm gonna say Elian for now, so if that's wrong, my bad. And Prince Elian hunts sirens, and his main goal is to hunt down the Prince's Bane, which is Lyra, and he has no idea that Lyra now as a human is Prince's Bane, or that she's a siren. So she's constantly hiding this other side of herself from him. And Prince Elian also has some things that he's hiding from her and the rest of his crew on his ship, but it didn't feel as, you know, important as what Lyra was hiding from all of them. So of course, this is one of those stories where it's like, oh, can I trust you? I don't know. And there's this constant like back and forth. There's lots of angst and like double identities going on, and people don't know who to trust, and like Prince Elian's crew doesn't really trust Lyra, and Lyra doesn't really trust them. So there's just this constant mirage thing kind of going on. I think this story had the potential of being really interesting and really exciting, and that was why I jumped into it so excitedly myself, because I was like, wow, this sounds like such a cool story. But the execution, I think, really failed because the characters were kind of annoying. The whole plot itself, like there were other subplots going on, and they didn't really make a lot of sense, and it just fell really flat. Another one of my main problems with this story is the relationship between Elian and Lyra. So Lyra obviously is a siren, and Elian is a siren hunter, so they kind of have that going against each other. I think there was a potential there for both of them to kind of resolve their differences and, you know, create something beautiful, but the way that they got to the very end of the novel, it didn't feel like a healthy relationship. So when, you know, the ending did come, I don't want to give away spoilers, but I feel like you can kind of figure out how this novel is going to go. When it got to the end, I was just kind of like, oh, so we're just going to ignore all that other stuff that happened? Like, that doesn't feel very good. One of the things that happens almost first in this novel is that when Prince Elian rescues Lyra from the ocean after she's been turned into a human, he's like asking her for information. How does she know how to speak siren, and, you know, all these other things, like why was she just abandoned in the middle of the ocean? Like he's very skeptical, which I totally understand, but then he gets so skeptical to the point of he locks her in a cage with no light for 3 days. What the hell? And it's important to remember that Prince Elian has no idea that Lyra is a siren, so he has no really motivation for doing that. I really wonder if she had been less beautiful and maybe not a woman, if he would have done the same thing. And I think it was supposed to like rack up the angst or something, but to me it was just like, God, like Elian is such, like, you're led into the novel into believing that Prince Elian is this wonderful human, and while he does hunt sirens, he's still a great guy, you know, he's really looking out for people on his crew, and then it's like, oh yeah, he locked her in a cage for 3 days, and it's like, what? That's not very nice. So I just constantly felt like there was conflicting things going on between what the author wanted you to believe and then what actually happened with the characters' actions. And then constantly Elian was like, I can't get her out of my mind, and she's so beautiful, blah blah blah, all these descriptions about her body and whatever, which was kind of weird. And then, you know, there were a couple times where Lyra would just like lay a hand on him or something, and he would instantly like pull away and be like, don't touch me, and blah, 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 like, don't even like look at me, you know, kind of thing. And then like 2 seconds later, he'd turn around and be touching her, and it was kind of like, dude, you can't be that hypocritical. It just really felt like this kind of, I hate to make this comparison, but it felt a lot like the relationship between Feyre and Tamlin in A Court of Thorn and Roses. You're led to believe into thinking that this is like a great relationship, and it's like, wow, they're so angsty, and like, ooh, that's so exciting and romantic. And it's not romantic at all. It's harmful, and it's perpetuating this stereotype that if men are like masculine and really over aggressive, that that's romantic for girls, and it's not romantic at all. Towards the end of the novel, I was growing increasingly more frustrated with the characters because of their inaccuracies between what they were thinking and then what they were actually doing. And there was one point where we get this thought process of Lyra and what she's thinking at the moment, and she says something about Elend that I thought was really striking, and I'm just going to read it for you. Before Elend made me realize what it was like to be free, the very person who gave me a glimpse of hope is now so willing to sacrifice his own. When did he give her hope? He trapped her in a dark cage for 3 days. He stole her necklace when he found her and wouldn't give it back to her even though she asked, and there was like literally no motivation for him to do so. He left her to die on a burning ship with a murderer who had just previously tried to kill them. She saved his life on that ship, and then he was just like, alright, see ya, after she was like, no, go, like, you don't need to save me. And he like didn't even think twice about leaving. I mean, maybe he did a little bit, and he did come back. But it was like, you're not the greatest dude. And he constantly berates her and just makes her feel like so inadequate, and she's already going through all this other stuff because she's human, and which granted, he doesn't know that she was just turned from a siren to a human, but it's like, oh my god, dude, just leave her alone. And he abandoned her in a city she was unfamiliar in and didn't give her directions to where he had told her to go, and it was like, oh god, this is horrible. So I was genuinely pretty confused when that line came up. I think a lot of people are going to start comparing this to A Little Mermaid, but I find A Little Mermaid to be far more interesting. I think this would have been a way more interesting novel if the romance had been cut out of it. But because that romance was shoehorned in, it just felt so like, ugh. I don't even know the word to describe it. It was like, okay, I literally don't care about this relationship between you two because you're both being really harmful and weird to each other. It's just odd. Therefore, I did give this one 2 out of 5 stars because while I think the plot was interesting and it had the potential to be something great, the characters just felt really inconsistent. All of that being said, are you still interested in this one? If you were interested previously, are you still going to pre-order it? Let me know in the comments below. I still love hearing from you guys. And if you like this video, give it a thumbs up, subscribe, all that good stuff. You can find me in the links below on Twitter, Tumblr, Instagram, my blog. Otherwise, I will see you in the next video. Bye! Woo! Otherwise, no, damn it!